You are a B2B service-based business owner and you are looking to gain more clients, create more impact, and more revenue in your business. Tune in to Amplify Your Marketing Message with Campbell Rapin. Every week, we're going to take you through how to build an audience of buyers, mastering your marketing message, and making offers that convert consistently. We'll see you all on the inside. Welcome back, everybody. This year, I want you to embrace speed, and in particular, finding ways to create fast revenue. And I'm super excited to introduce to you today a peer of mine, somebody that I learn from, that I admire, and that really has a fun way for you to shift your brain and have a lot more fun in your business. Please give a very warm welcome to our guest today, Mrs. Jean Kuhn. Super excited to have you here.
Hi, Christine. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm really well, thank you. I think you have a fascinating story because you jumped into the world of entrepreneurship and never looked back. What was the biggest thing you learned early that's paying dividends today?
Oh, maybe that you should do some research about that. I had to learn that lesson, right? I had to learn the lesson of speed does reward wealth. And what other lesson did I learn that somebody else should really learn is hire a mentor sooner.
I love that because Jean and I actually both work with the same business coach, and that's actually how our paths had crossed.
Mm-hmm.
And it was even just a couple of weeks ago, actually, I was watching some of your content on LinkedIn, and I thought, I don't know if I do that. I better go take a look. I better implement right away. And that's what I want to talk about today because you really help people find their language, find their gem, find their marketing. But truthfully, a lot of people are making it way more complicated than it needs to be.
Yeah. I don't know about you, Christine, but if I could create a little task for myself, it is not truly a task unless I have overcomplicated it and made it about 16 times longer than it needed to be. I'm the queen of that. And I think a lot of women are, because we get caught up in our own stuff and how it's supposed to be. And I had a grandmother who taught me early on that if I didn't wash the floor on my hands and knees, it wasn't good enough, right? And I'm like, well, there's no way in hell I would do that now, right?
Yeah. I love the fact that you talk about hiring somebody faster and not overcomplicating it, because I think one of the biggest advantages of being in a community or being surrounded by somebody who does move really quickly and can stop you like a heartbeat and said, stop it. You're overcomplicating this. Just go do the one thing that we asked you to do. And truthfully, we throw a lot of wasted money at marketing, trying to find our dream client. And marketing is one goal, and that is movement. It's not about sales, it's about movement and finding buyers. And I'd love for you to know what you think. And when you're coaching other people, what do you think is a good spend when it comes to finding clients?
I like $0 to maybe a few bucks. I don't know. How about you? What do you think? What do you like to spend? I don't want to spend a lot of money on my marketing. What do you want to spend?
You know, it's a true story. I spent years, and even now into my business, this is the real first year I would say that I've actually put a real intentional line item for marketing spend. And I'm many years into my business. That's not to say that I didn't spend money along the way, but it was always after a proof of concept was running versus throwing spaghetti at the wall. And I think that that is where we start. What's your favorite free thing that you do?
I think my favorite free thing is speaking. Now, listen, 20 years ago or so, that was not even an option when I was in a retail-based service, right? That speaking was not an option. Then it was just doing crazy things to see what would stick and what would bring people in the door. And I could promotion, right? But now, and listen, I can spend some money with the best of them for a speaking opportunity, which is really where I only spend my marketing money these days is on sponsorships or speaking opportunities. But
Yeah, it would be for me probably the second line item on there. The one thing I do highly recommend is making sure you have tools to support your clients. And what I mean by that is thank you cards, money for gifts. Make sure you're treating your clients as you would like to be treated. And after that, recognize your top priorities finding your next client.
I agree.
Always.
Yeah.
So when you are looking at your world of business, it's different when you're in the online space than the traditional retail world. A lot of people get distracted trying all kinds of things, but you have a real belief that creativity doesn't need big money and can be something you do quickly. What do you love? What are your clients loving these days that you think, guys, pay attention, it's much more basic than you think?
Well, they're in the learning stage, right? This group of clients are right at the beginning. So they're in the learning stage. So they don't like anything about it right now, right? Because
Guys,
right
hear
now
that?
it's
You're not going to like it in the beginning.
no, they don't like it at the beginning because they're not used to taking that much action, right? In their business and what they have to take. So that's one of the first things I have to do is amp them up to start taking more action in everything, right? Whatever they're doing, they've got to take more action in it. But I think the favorite thing that they like to do is they like the one-on-ones, right? The one-on-one conversations, which is great if you want to take a long time to bring on a new client, right? But I like to leverage my time using speaking to bring on multiple clients at a time.
Well, and a lot of people shy away from speaking. You and I are not in that crowd, but generally we know it's one of the biggest fears that people have is truthfully getting in front of other people. But just so we're clear, peeps, you've heard this on the show before, but your business is built on strangers. So you have to find a commitment to visibility and for moving visibility to identify a buyer. And I want to know when you first started, because obviously you create events, you invest in events, you are a big advocate for it. Do your clients see momentum and desire to speak after exposure through the things that you do?
I wouldn't say yes. I don't. I would say a couple of them, right?
Mm.
They have to grow into that, just like I had to grow into it, right? Because I was that shy kid in school. I know it's hard to believe, right? But I was the shy
It
kid in
is not hard.
school,
That's where I was, hiding behind my mother's leg saying, please don't make me go find friends.
right? And I had to learn how to stand out, and that's uncomfortable if. And I'm an extrovert, but that's uncomfortable if you've never done it. If you're not really good at it, I had to learn to be good at that, to be able to network with people, to be able to go up to a stranger and introduce myself. Are you kidding me? That was so uncomfortable. But I think that's really where they like to hang out. But to start with, yeah, I think that's it because I don't know. Right now, it's just about getting them uncomfortable.
Well, and I want to talk about this on being uncomfortable because here's the thing that I know I must say about 100 times a week. There's a difference between desire to want something and a desire to have the thing you want. In order to have what you want, you must do what's required. And that may mean absolutely challenging yourself to get uncomfortable, to, yes, evolve. I mean, I am true, like you, I said, I learned to speak and I taught it in professional circles. I obviously use it very significantly in my own business. But it's like, guys, I had to learn. And even to this day, there's a whole ritual between who I am on a stage and where my natural way to play is.
Hmm.
It is something I learned would be worth it. So I could suck it up, Buttercup, in order to do that.
Yeah.
And after you hold space and you do something new, it's not a free pass.
Mhm.
Eventually you're like, I have to do that again and again and again and again. And I'm curious in your own journey, when you first started out,
Mhm.
what was the biggest commitment pep talk you had to give yourself to stay in that I'm going to stay uncomfortable? Because we get uncomfortable and we want to run away, and some do, and it kills them, costs them their business dreams.
I was this entrepreneur for 28 years before I really started making anything that I would call real money. And that was not even $100,000 yet. Right. So the biggest thing I had to do was I really took 2 weeks to decide if I was going to start this business or not, and what was going to be required of me. And was I going to be willing to do it? Because I wasn't willing to do it a year before. I wasn't willing to pick up the phone. I wasn't willing to make phone calls. I wasn't willing to be uncomfortable. I wasn't willing to ask somebody to work with me. But after 28 years of never making the kind of money I really wanted to, when I really decided to put the retail business on hold, well, I mean, I hired a manager. I didn't just close the doors. Hired a manager and started this business. I was 53 years old, and I had to really decide, was I was I still young enough to get uncomfortable again to do this? And you know what? There was a level of success I had not hit and that I desperately wanted, and I decided I was willing to do that, and I did it.
I love that you spent the time to do that because I admire that greatly. And I think very few people think about that level of honesty of what will it take
Mhm.
to get what I want if this is the vehicle. Because I said, there's a lot of ways to make impact, and a lot of people get out of bed saying, I'm here to save the world. I said, start by saving yourself and getting clear what you're willing to do and
Yeah.
what you're willing to have. Because in order to transition, it comes down to you lighting your fire.
Yes.
And yes, working with mentors will light your fire on occasion. Sometimes they will absolutely blow up your thought patterns, your habits, your excuses, but it is not their job to carry the flame. It's your
Right.
job. It's your job to carry
Exactly.
the flame. And when you had to make that first phone call, I want to talk about that story because I know I've heard it and I think it's very impactful. You were a hell no, I'm never going to pick up the phone.
Hell no. Right. Yeah. 100%.
And that was not the advice of your coach at the time.
No. As a matter of fact, I heard her say that a year before, and I decided this is not for me, but I loved everything she was doing and saying and what could it was possible. And it was at that time, it was like, I'm not willing to pick up the phone. And a year later, I was still in the exact same place I was at $300 a month in this business, trying to create a business out of not talking to people. So,
Boy,
as a
so
business
related,
coach,
so
right?
relatable. I mean, there's a lot of people in the audience who are like, oh, cringe. Like that. That might be exactly where I am.
Yeah.
And you had a shift. And tell us about those first few phone calls or why now you're like, I don't care. I still don't love it, but it is not going to be something I don't do.
Yeah, that I'm gonna tell you about the very first phone call because I had done a one-day event and there were 16 people in the room. And I made my very first paid offer. Like I'm actually asking people to work with me and charging money for it. That's the very first time, Christine. That was in 2015. And the crazy thing about that is I did such a poor job. I didn't tell them the price. I messed up everything I was saying. I was sweating profusely. Like my hands were clammy. I was so freaking scared to do that and uncomfortable. And so anyway, I thought I did an okay job. And then at the end, they all just sat there looking at me. And then we moved on and finished the event and nobody bought. And honestly, I felt like I really put so much into that. I really went outside my comfort zone to ask for the sale, and everybody rejected me. And a week later, 7 days later, I went to my car and I pulled all the stuff in my car that was still sitting there from a week before. And I had them fill out a form. Like, what do they want? How much money do they want to earn? Blah, blah, blah. And I picked up the phone and I started calling them one by one. And I said, hey, I see on the form that everything I offered you at that event was what you want and what you need. Can you tell me why you said no? And then they proceeded to tell me is like, Jean, you didn't tell us how much it cost. The offer was confusing. I didn't know what I was going to get. And I'm like, oh, so I was just a bad salesperson. They really still wanted this. And out of those 16, 3 people took me up on a $3,000 offer. So I made $9,000 at the end of that. And I was hooked. I was hooked. And I decided I am going to keep this up, because if I can get 3 people who didn't understand what I was saying, who I did such a poor job, and I didn't tell them the price, and then they bought, right? I could do this. I could do this. I could learn to do this.
And I love this story. It parallels my own. My first event, I didn't even think I could. I did it. Like, making an offer on my first event wasn't even on my radar. I was like, I just want to hold the event.
Yeah.
I need to learn this component. I didn't want to add the complexity of a sale. And over time, of course, how we structure events, what we do for them, the goal is clients.
Yeah.
And the goal is to find your clients in the room. And there is a very direct, very straightforward, very human opportunity, which is talk to somebody.
Yeah. It's just,
Like, guys, it's not more complicated than that. That is honestly the most tried and true business from 2015 to 2025 and beyond. It will always be the simplest path to cash. Talk to somebody.
the thing that I learned, I think that was the most impactful from that, is people don't want to ask for the sale, but it's not about the asking. It's about finding out what they need, right? Finding out what is the most important thing to them in their business, and what do they need? And can I provide that? And if I can provide it, then it's really, am I helping somebody? Am I really helping somebody if I don't ask them to work with me, if I know I can solve that problem for them? I'm not. I'm not really doing my job if I'm not asking to help somebody who's in desperate need of help.
Well, and your awareness too, you had a need and I think I can meet it. What did I miss? And I think that's really a powerful understanding, because not everybody will be your client.
Right.
And at the same time, if there's something that you have missed, you had an opportunity because of a simple phone call to move very quickly to $9,000, and not with the expectation that you were going to. But if I could stay in the moment and I could understand, I could learn and maybe bridge the gap of some delivery that gets better with time. But trust me, we all botch delivery. We all do it, but we have to stay in the game.
Right.
And I think what's important though is also your humanness here, which I give you great props for. We're saying, I'm not curing cancer here, but I just thought there was an opportunity and I missed a gap. Help me understand the gap, because we over criticize ourselves. We
Oh, yeah.
over think the consequences. If somebody doesn't buy, so what?
Next. Bob Berg taught me that, right? When somebody says no, the in your head, you just say this in your head, not out loud. You just say next, right? And when I started saying next and not being tied to the outcome, right? That's a big piece right there, because when you're tied to the outcome, you come across as desperate.
Yeah.
And when you can let that go and say next and mean it, right? You have to mean it. Everything changed. Everything changes.
Yeah, and the speed builds up. And the truth is, while the numbers are what the numbers are, 20 to 30% of people will say yes the first time. But if they haven't solved the need, they could be still a buyer. You can make very quick conversations with a heart. Can I support you to get what you need? And if so, here's what I would recommend.
Right.
Let's talk about whether I could be a resource for you. And I love that there is such a direct path to that. And truthfully, you can cluster it up and people will still say yes and say no, and you will still survive this. And I'd love to ask you, because I want to, everyone I meet does something exceptionally well to bring business in. For you, your business has catapulted a lot since 2015. And you are still really committed to learning, to growing, and to gaining speed. But what is working for you that feels like sizzle and oxygen to build your business, to make more impact, and to see clients flock to say yes?
There's two things. Number one, speaking is always working, right? So that for me is my go-to. It's always where can I speak for free? That's my number one. But the other piece was, oh shoot, what was it? I just forgot it. It was speaking and give me a second. Oh, group programs. I had never run a group program until 2023. And that works. That really, what that did for me was allow me to reclaim some of my time instead of teaching it one-on-one, and for a less price point. So it made it affordable for more people. That right there works for me. I wasn't doing it correctly when I started, which because I started with group and I just didn't get it. But after I did a lot of privates, then I realized I could do this and I could kill it with group.
I love the way that this comes later because I talk a lot of people out of running groups. And I do so because I said you haven't enough practice in the one-to-one. And one-to-many is not simply you deciding it's more efficient. You have to build the skills to successfully move a lot of people through a lot of different elements to the same result.
Yes.
And if you are not skilled in doing that, you might fall short in getting the result. And if you don't get results for your clients, it does have an impact in your business and your reputation, but build the skills. Practice your craft, then keep looking for an opportunity to leverage.
Yes, exactly.
I love it. Jane, how do people find you?
They can find me at JeanKuhn.com. There you go, right there.
This is exactly it. And you have a resource for our team. Tell us about it.
I do. What it is one of the ways I turned around 2 bankrupt businesses that I purchased was by, number one, working fast, making really fast moves and fast actions. But the other piece was doing just creating unique things that other people were not doing in their stores, right? I had a chocolate store. It was a franchise. And I was marketing it differently than anybody else out there, meaning that I was one of the first ones to start in the franchise system. I was the first one to start using email marketing when it first came out. And I had a lot of success with that. I would steal ideas from my competition. I would hear them say something, and then I would implement it faster than them. Now, is that right? Yes, it is right. It's okay to do that because how many times do you hear somebody say they're going to do something and then they never do it, right? I assumed that my competition was not going to do what they said they would because I used to not do what I said I would do, right?
Boom.
And now that I knew better and could move faster, I just did it faster. So,
and guys, this is the year of speed. This is such an interesting thing. Movement is a crescendo. The faster you move, the more amplification you will have, the easier it will get because you have opportunity to ask questions, to get on the phone, to speak more often, and to grow your business. Guys, your next client is waiting. Make sure you're moving. It's easier to intercept somebody if you're both in movement.
Right. So Christine, let me just say, so I'm going to give them the 5 marketing strategies I used that were no cost, low cost to turn around 2 bankrupt businesses that I purchased.
Guys, you want that. We've got the link down below, JeanKuhn.com. Please go connect to this amazing individual. I think you're awesome, Jean. Thank you for being a guest on our show. Guys, when you really want to create business, revenue comes when fast actions are supported with follow through. So go get Jean's ideas, go connect to her, and we will see you all on our next episode. We'll see you then.
Thank you.
That's a wrap on another amazing episode of Amplify Your Marketing Message with me, your host, Christine Campbell Rapin. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss another great episode. And be sure to visit christinecampbellrapin.com/podcast to get a free resource on how to master your marketing message.